Hello, this is the fourth and final video review on understanding language, learning and teaching, brought to you by the British Council and the University of Southampton. We've just reached the end of week 4 of our course, and I'm going to quickly round up some of the discussions that have caught my eye this week and say goodbye, I'm afraid. This week we've been talking about global Englishes and the spread of English around the world. We've been talking about English as a lingua franca, ELF, and we've been talking about the future of English. So most people seem to feel that the spread of English is generally a positive thing, I think. A lot of you have mentioned the benefits of being able to communicate with people from all around the world and the opportunities that this brings. Some people have raised concerns for less widely spoken languages that are dying out, and then others have pointed out that maybe that's the responsibility of speakers of those languages to keep them alive, and we can't blame English. Interesting discussions on that. Titiksha's comment on this topic caught my eye because she takes a slightly different stance, and rather than saying that it's positive or negative, points out that it has brought inequalities to India since only expensive private and public schools provide access to English language teaching. It's caused class distinctions. And my experience teaching in other countries has certainly been that it is often those who are wealthier who have access to more opportunities to learn English. Elsewhere, Willem points out that, rather than saying that's positive or negative, we really need to make sure that these opportunities, the opportunities for education, are available to everyone so that everyone can benefit in this globalised world. On step 4.5, Shahram argues that so this step was the one where in the video we mentioned that learners of English as a foreign language are often expected to adjust their use of language to a native speaker model. And I think when that's said in the video, I think we possibly mean when we're teaching and learning, learners are striving for a native speaker model. But Shahram points out that actually native speakers often adjust their language to help foreigners understand when they're speaking to foreigners. And that comment led to an interesting discussion on step 4.5. Partway through the discussion, Sophia changes the subject very slightly and wonders whether speakers of English, native speakers who adjust their language when speaking to foreigners, whether they are the same people who tend to change their accent when speaking with people who speak English with a slightly different accent. And I found that a really interesting comment because, as Katrina says in response to Sophia, I do that subconsciously. Katrina does that subconsciously. I'm very much one of those people as well. And I started to wonder whether there's a link between being the sort of person who subconsciously changes their accent, being the sort of person who adjusts their language, who's sensitive to the needs of non-native speakers when we're speaking to them, and maybe even to being good at learning other languages. Does being sensitive to other accents, is that actually a sensitivity that we carry through to picking up other languages? I don't know. This is not something that I've researched or even really thought about before. I was aware of the sociolinguistic phenomenon, and I might be completely wrong about that, but it's a very interesting thought anyway. A thought-provoking discussion there. Moving on, the controversy over native and non-native speakers is interesting. I know we pose quite a simplistic question, and that frustrates some people, I think. A lot of you saying, you can't categorise people, you can't say whether one is better than the other. And actually, in posing the question, we don't expect to arrive at an answer. We just want to raise awareness of some of the issues, of the fact that, often native speakers are privileged and perhaps don't always deserve to be. On that topic, I particularly liked Marique's response to Jessica, and that learners sometimes think that British and American speakers of English are the only native speakers, and actually the issue of who is and who isn't a native speaker is actually quite complex. Marique's questions make me think of the great many mixed can't speak this morning, mixed ethnicity children growing up in Britain, so children with parents of two different ethnicities who perhaps speak more than one language from birth, and the children of immigrants, some of my friends whose parents immigrated from another country but who are born here, and who perhaps for the first couple of years of their lives, their first language, their native language if you like, although I think that's debatable, was a language other than English, but because they've grown up here, they've very quickly become proficient in English, and perhaps in some cases more proficient after a while in English than their home language. Well, are they native speakers or not? I think that's a really interesting thought, and it also led me to wonder whether what you look like has an impact on how people perceive you as a teacher of English. If you're not white British, if you don't sort of fit the stereotypical image of what a British or an American person looks like, does that impact on people's attitudes towards you? Controversial, but quite interesting thoughts, I think, and good perhaps to raise awareness and challenge people's assumptions and preconceptions about this sort of thing. Okay, well, finally, the question of another language challenging English as a global language, as the dominant global language. There have been quite a few suggestions from you that Chinese could do it, but perhaps an overall feeling that English is not going anywhere anytime soon. On step 4.13, I rather like Burdock's comment that if logic had anything to do with it, English would be replaced by a language like Spanish that has easier spelling and pronunciation. It's interesting because in our use of the language that we speak over time, it's said that language evolves to become more efficient. Why not use an easier language as a global language? But then is that a straightforward concept? Is Spanish easier for everyone? Are different languages easier or more difficult for different people depending on their first language? And perhaps ELF is a sign of people adapting English to make it a little easier for use in an international context. Burdock also conceded that logic is probably not the main deciding factor, and I tend to agree with that, and I agree with those who suggest that politics and economics rather than logic will dictate which languages become influential in the future. So it's the end of the course now as far as Josh and I are concerned, so I'm afraid we won't be joining in the discussions beyond today. The course is open for another couple of weeks though, so please do continue to discuss amongst yourselves. It's been really great to have so many comments, so many interesting discussions from all of you, so thank you for that. At the very end of this week's materials on step 4.21, there are some suggestions for how you can continue learning and continue talking about learning and talking about languages beyond this course, so do follow those up. And on the same step, on step 4.21, Manju has asked a question about further futurelearn courses, and Josh has already responded to that with links to other courses by the British Council and the University of Southampton, and they're not the only ones, so if you have found other opportunities that you think would be useful to other participants on this course, please post them there in the comments so that everyone has somewhere to move on to once this course finishes. So that's it. I'm afraid. It's been really enjoyable working with you all, and I wish you all the very best for your learning and teaching and everything in the future. Bye.